Hi everybody, this video is going to cover lesson 6.2, which is how to write an equation of a line when you have 2 points. So first of all, a couple things we need to remember. We need to remember our slope formula, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 equals x sub 2 minus x sub 1. The point slope formula, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1, and slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. These two forms they each have their advantages and disadvantages. And so mostly for this day, we will be using the point slope form, but there will be some when we use slope-intercept form. Okay, well, how do we go about doing this? If we know what the slope is and we know what a point is, then we can use point slope form. Makes sense. It's called point slope form, and it's when we have a slope and a point. So when we have the slope and a point, remember that the slope, the letter we use for slope is m, and then this is a point, and we call this point x1, y1. And so when we plug in the numbers, this first y we leave as a regular old y. The next one, though, is we plug in that -2. And then the slope is 1/2, so we're going to plug in the 1/2 here. And then we're going to say x minus x sub 1, which is 6. And then you have the equation of your line. Now there's one little thing I'm going to do, and that is I'm going to make that minus negative. We take those minus negative signs and put them together and make a plus sign. So it's actually y plus 2 is equal to 1/2 x minus 6. Because remember, there's a minus sign in between here. Okay, not a plus sign, but a minus sign. Okay, let's do one more example. This one is going to be a little bit different, and we'll just kind of play it out, okay? So again, this first number, the slope is the m, and then this is my x1, and this is my y1. Okay, so I'm going to have y minus, in this case, 4, is equal to 1 times x minus, and in this case, 0. Okay, so this is what I mean when I say we're going to play it out. So the left-hand side, there's nothing to do with the left-hand side yet. We're just going to leave it like this. Now the right-hand side has a 1, it has a 0. Seems like we could simplify a little bit. We could take this 1 and like distribute it basically, but 0 times anything is just 0. So in other words, this just comes out to be 1x. Or you could even just call it x. Well, there's one more thing. Now, if we look at this point slope form and we look at the y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form, it doesn't really match up with either one of them. Instead, what if we added 4 to both sides? Then we would get y equals 1x, or you could just call it x, plus 4. All right, that was kind of a longer problem. Let me go back and show you maybe a shorter way to do it. And so what I'm going to do is think about this for a second, because if I have a point 0,4, do you know where that point 0,4 is? Like if I graph that point, the point 0,4 would be right here. What is that point called? It's your y-intercept right there. So instead of using this x1, y1, anytime you see a 0 here, we can just use the b is equal to 4. Okay, that's going to make the problem a little bit easier, because now y stays y, m is 1, just like it was a second ago, and then x plus, and I have a b here. That's just a lot easier. So anytime you see that the point is a 0, comma number, that means it's the intercept. And so let's just use this one instead. We'll do a couple more examples like that later. Okay, what if it's on a graph? If it's on a graph and we know some points, so I might take a few minutes to look at some things here. One thing is this point is the point 0, 3. And this is the point 5, -1. Well, when I talk about an anchor point, I could use either one of them as my anchor point. But they're asking for point slope form specifically. If it was just any random form, I could use any form I wanted to, but they're asking for point slope form. Because of that, I'm going to use the point 5, -1 as my anchor point. Okay, what's the slope? Well, I have to count it. And so I count it and I go down 4 and right 5. So the slope is down 4, right 5. That's -4/5. And they're asking for the equation in point slope form. That's this one, remember, that this is my m, and this is my x1 and my y1. And so now I just say y minus -1 is equal to -4/5 times x minus 5. And once again, kind of like before, the only thing I need to fix here is this minus negative. And you know what? I wouldn't count off if you had it minus negative, but it just is a little bit shorter and neater to say y plus. So it's y plus 1 is -4/5 x minus 5. Okay, once again, they give us a graph. Here's a 0.04, here's a 0.52. To find my slope, I'm going to count my rise over run. So that's down 2 and right 5. And my anchor point, once again, I could choose either one. I just like this one better because it doesn't have a 0 in it. This one is actually my B, just like this one was my B. But we're asking for point slope, so I'm going to use this 5-2 instead. Where the 5 is my x sub 1 and the 2 is my y sub 1. And so now I'm going to plug them into this equation. Y minus 2 is equal to -2/5 x minus 5. And that's the answer. Okay, let's turn the page. All right, there are a lot of examples on this page. We might not do every one, but the reason there are a lot of examples is this is honestly one of those lessons that a lot of people get kind of confused on. So let's just take a look and get started. First thing we have to do, it says, determine the equation of the line containing the two given points. Almost always, when we need a line, we need the slope. So we're going to use our slope formula. I might even back up a step and say that this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. And so if I plug it into my formula, I'm going to have 2 minus 5 over 4 minus -2. And I'm going to put that into my calculator. And I get -3/6, which also does reduce to -1/2. So I find my slope to be -1/2. So the next step is now to use this equation to find the equation of the line. So again, I have y minus, and I could use either one, but I'm just going to stick with these because they're x1, y1. So I'm going to say y minus 5 is equal to -1/2, because that's my m, x minus -2. And remember, minus a negative does mean plus, and so I'm going to put that in there like that, and then I'm done. So just to go back for a minute to show you what we did. Step 1 was to find the slope. Step 2 was to find this equation. Okay, let's try it again. Let's look at this one. Here I have x1, y1, and x2, y2. When I start out these problems, I'm going to label it like that so I know what's what. I'm going to take y sub 2 minus y sub 1. That's 8 minus -12. And in my denominator, 4 minus -1. And so I put that into my calculator. I get 20 over 5, and 20 over 5 does really reduce down to 4. So my slope is 4. All right, so now my step 2 is to use this equation. So I have y, and I could use either one. You know what, last time I used x1, y1, this time I'll use x2, y2, just to show you it's exactly the same. In fact, this one might even be easier for x2, y2 because there's no negatives. So y minus 8 is equal to 4, because that was my slope, x minus 4. And then I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. Okay, remember I said there were a bunch on this page and we don't have to do every single one. I might do one more and then we're going to skip to another kind. Let's just take a look at number 3. Let's label it x1, y1, x2, y2. And so when I do my subtraction, I have a -4 minus -2. Remember, minus negative means plus. And then in my denominator, I have a -4 minus 4. And I'm going to use the calculator because there's a lot of negatives there and it just gets kind of confusing. So on my calculator, my numerator, negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. Negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8. And that does reduce down to a slope of 1/4. So now I use that slope and I plug it into this equation. And I can use either my y1, x1, y1, or my x2, y2. It's just if you choose the ones, you have to use both of those. And if you choose the twos, you have to use both of those. So I'm going to use the ones. Y minus negative 2 is equal to the slope, which is 1/4, times x minus 4. And so I might just change that minus negative, change it to a plus, and there's my final answer. Okay, so let's skip number 4. We've done a bunch of them. Let's skip number 4. We're just going to skip it, and we'll call this number 4. So we do need the slope. Absolutely, we have to have the slope. So let's do that again, the slope. In this case, let's go ahead and label them x1, y1, x2, y2. So I have negative 4 minus 2 over 0 minus 3. And that comes out to be negative 6 over negative 3, which reduces down to 2. So my slope is 2. All right, I'm going to do both number 4 and 5 because they both have something interesting in them, and it's the same thing, but I want to show you both ways. So we could use the x1, y1, or we can use the x2, y2, and then use this equation. So let's just use the x1, y1. So one possibility is y minus 2, because of that, y, is m, which is 2, times x minus 3. That is one possibility. Now, we could choose a different one, and we could have done the 0 and the negative 4. So we could say y minus negative 4 is 2 times x minus 0. There's nothing wrong with that. We could use that. But there's even a fourth one that we could do. And the other method that I'm talking about is we could just use y equals mx plus b. Because if we look, anytime you have a 0 in that x, but then you have a number over here, that means that b is negative 4. And so we could have just done this. Now we still have to do the solving for the slope. You have to do that anyway. But now you could just say y equals 2x plus negative 4. Or you could have said minus 4. But basically, any one of these three would be an acceptable answer. Now, I'm just going to go up and look at the instructions real quick. It just says, determine the equation of the line. Okay, does that mean point-slope form, or does that mean slope-intercept form? Well, if they don't tell us, we can use either one. And so that's what I was trying to show you down here, is we did it several different ways, and any one of those is a true answer, and they would all come out to be the same graph even. Let's do one more like that. Let's find the slope. So let's label our pieces. So our slope is going to be negative 1 minus 3 over negative 4 minus 0. And that's negative 4 over negative 4, which reduces down to 1. And once again, since I can tell this one is a 0, 3, I know that that's my b. So honestly, this equation is my favorite equation, but because it's the most useful. But if we already know that we know what the b is, then let's just use y equals mx plus b. It's shorter, right? And it's easier. This one I like for a gazillion reasons. It's just so much better. But this one works in this case. So we have y equals the m we found out is 1, and the b we found out is 3. My point is, if you can tell what the b is, then use slope-intercept. If you don't know what the b is, then use point-slope. And so all of these up here, none of them had a 0 in the x, so we had to use point-slope. That was the only option. But down here, these were both my b's, and so I could have just taken a little bit of a shortcut. Okay, real quickly at the bottom of your paper, here's what I want you to write down. These are the steps to follow. when you're given 2 points and you're asked for the equation of the line. Step 1 is use the slope formula to find the slope. Now I just changed my number 3, so if you wrote down number 3 before, erase it because I changed it. We're going to use the slope formula. Hopefully you've memorized this. This you should memorize. Use the point slope formula, this one, to find the equation of a line. Now for most of them, that's all you need. I have written down here as step 3 that you can use. You don't have to. Use y equals mx plus b if you're given the 0b. Anytime you see that pattern, then you know that's the y-intercept. You can use slope-intercept form. All right, we will talk about this in class next time.